Alright, so it's very important for us all to grasp that there exists a spiritual law of cause and effect, and if we learn to apply this law to our benefit, we'll be able to understand how we can create the sort of results that we want. Results being the effects in our lives that we observe through our senses, that we experience, that we share with other people. So if we figure out what is the cause behind the effects, or the so-called results of our lives, we can then work with that consciously and start to create a better and better world and life for ourselves. So if that's something you're interested in learning about, check out the rest of this video. Alright, welcome back. Today I wanted to talk to you about the law of cause and effect. Perhaps in your studies throughout metaphysics you have stumbled upon this term, cause and effect. There are two polarities to the same force that is operating within our lives. Now we want to understand how we can work with that to our benefit so we can create the sort of results that we want. When we talk about results, we are literally talking about improving whatever we want in our lives, whether it's finances, career goals, relationship goals, family goals, health goals, whatever it is. The way you're living, these are all goals that are in essence, once they are achieved, you're observing an effect. And this is what most people seem to miss, is that they think of these big goals and dreams they have that they would like to achieve for themselves, but because they don't understand how to apply the sufficient and proper cause in order to generate such an effect, which would mean the realization of their dream, they stay stuck. They're unable to live their dreams. So many people that would like to live in a better way, in a bigger way than they currently are, and it's part of a dream that they're having in their consciousness, but because they don't entirely understand the process of cause and effect, well, they're unable to really realize their dreams. And that's what we want to change through this video, or at least to give you some ideas that you can think about in your own time and analyze for yourself in your own world, and then hopefully you can start working in it for your own goals from now on. So for this video we're going to be going through 3 pictures. So I hope you'll take notes. If you have like a pencil somewhere, or if you're on your computer, that's fine too, you can just type it out. If ideas come to you that you're like, this is really interesting, this really stood out to me, you want to always write them down for yourself so you can then reread it later on and study it for yourself. Because this sort of material, as I always say to people, it's not meant to be read or listened to just for the sake of doing something with your time. You're actually trying to alter your mind in a bigger and better way. And in order to do that, you yourself have to apply that force. You have to be the one considering these ideas for yourself in your own time, so it can start to grow and expand and become stronger. You start to build convictions around these ideas in your own way, and then you're able to apply them in your own life once and for all. What's even better is you can ultimately start teaching it to other people if you want. So with that out of the way, let's get to the first picture of the law of cause and effect. Alright, so before we get into the cause and effects phenomena of existence, we're going to look at that one picture that I have on the screen right now. Now I've had this picture in my map, in my playlist for my audiobooks, and I call it Explaining the Mind. It's basically what we call a stick person, and even though it looks a little weird at first for most people, it's symbolically meant to represent you and me. It's supposed to represent how our consciousness works, and how our consciousness is also influenced by our sensory factors. And again, these are aspects that we don't necessarily see with our physical eyes alone. I mean, if you look at a person, you don't see their conscious and subconscious mind at all. But yet we agree we have one. We know we have one. We know we're aware somehow, some way. But the process is invisible. So this stick person is meant to help you see it through a sort of symbolic way how this all works. So you can work with it from then on, hopefully with a bigger and better awareness for yourself of what you're capable of doing. So this first picture, what it shows you in the middle is, again, if we go over this really quickly, are 5 little lines sticking out of the conscious mind, and these lines are representative of your 5 senses. You know, you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Well, that circle underneath those lines, you have the conscious mind. With a line underneath that, it says the subconscious mind. It's the emotional aspect of your consciousness and that then is symbolically hooked up to your body. Now, of course, the way this is sort of drawn, it's like the head is the conscious and subconscious mind, and everything underneath that head of ours is the body. But of course, your head is part of your body, so that's not literally how it is, but it gives us an idea of how this process works, because we want to alter the ideas within our consciousness if we want to work effectively with the law of cause and effect. Now let's change the picture around. Here you see on the right side of the picture, in red, a red arrow pointing at the conscious mind and the subconscious mind at the same time. Next to that, we set in red the word cause. You see, we're working with cause and effect. So what we're hinting at here is that the causes for the results in your life first happen within your own consciousness. Now that's what you want to grasp. You don't want to really worry about anything else in life other than this main cause that is determining the results in your life, which is your own consciousness. So if we change the picture around again, here you see the word effect in the top, in the middle of the picture. It says in red effect, with red arrows pointing towards the senses. Now what this is trying to tell you is that if we talk about the law of cause and effect, we are describing the process of how this actually works. First of all, you work with your mind in order to provide the cause of a given effect that you will observe through your sensory factors. Now this might sound a little weird and a little too crazy at first, but it's very powerful once you grasp it, because what we're getting at here is that everything you see around you, again, are effects. They're creations of the mind. Now, some things that are created, they're more difficult to grasp whether they have been created through the mind itself. If you look at the universe entirely, we have to come to the conclusion they are created by perhaps what we would describe a universal mind, or in religion they would call it God. So these ideas aren't that far-fetched at all in the end. But what we want to understand in our current physical life concerning our own individual existence is that everything that you're surrounded by right now, everything you see in this room right now in my world, they're effects. They're creations of the mind. Now what was the cause for such effects, for such creations? Well, the cause was the consciousness of either an individual or a group of people that worked on the idea. Now if you want to use the law of effect, the law of cause and effect, to your benefit in your life, you want to start to analyze for yourself what sort of causes are you providing. Now, the thing to look at specifically is what sort of things are you thinking about most of your time? What sort of things are you imagining about most of the time? You see, the imagination, I like to say always that it's so powerful because it can influence the way you're thinking. It's like you're using spiritual senses. If you're using your imagination in the right way to see whatever you want inside your consciousness, you're looking through, you could say, spiritual senses. You're not looking to your imaginary visions through the senses you're using to see the physical world. Now what we're getting at here is that if you understand that, if you first build the concept in your mind of what you want, you're working with first cause, and you can't go wrong then. As long as you make sure you are working with the real cause behind the results in your life, you'll be able to create whatsoever effect you want. You shouldn't underestimate this. That's the beautiful part about the power that you hold within yourself. That's the beauty about this law of cause and effect. That's what these pictures are trying to show you. So now let's get into some practical aspects of this law. Now, a practical aspect to understand about the law of cause and effect is that we have these mental faculties. In fact, it was in the pictures earlier, but I'll just talk about it right now from the top of my head, because I just briefly mentioned a few. One of them was imagination. Well, through imagination, you're providing first cause for so-called physical creation. We shouldn't underestimate this, because that is exactly what we want to grasp. Once you understand that you can provide whatsoever cause you want to create whatsoever result you want, well then you're able to do some great stuff for your life from this moment forward. Now, where do most people live? Again, they live in the world of effects, and they live in the world of effects alone, meaning they're constantly hypnotized by what is already created. Now, this is okay. Entertainment, watching a movie, hanging out with friends, making love to your partner. I don't care what you're doing. It is all part of a world of effects for you and me individually at that moment. But if we want to improve the results, we're going to have to work with the first cause. So right here, where you are right now, I know you have obstacles, you have things you would like to improve. I have them myself. What am I supposed to do? Well, I'm supposed to grasp that the first thing I need to do is change my mind according to what I want. So what I mean by that is, I have to grasp that if I look at a certain area of my life that I would like to improve or that I would like to expand in, first I have to think. I first have to imagine what that improvement would be all about. You know, I throw the doors wide open of my imagination. You know, I found out something very interesting is that a lot of times we're not willing to truly throw open the door of our imagination. It's like we can hear this stuff, we know it's powerful at some sort of a certain level of our being, and then yet when it comes to our dreams, we're still sort of unable and unwilling to truly start imagining entirely what we want. And I think it's the most part that we are afraid of losing our minds when we're doing this. When you start living from your imagination, if you're not used to that, at first it might seem absolutely crazy, like you're literally losing your mind. But the beautiful part is that you're not losing your mind, you are finding the power of your mind. That is what the universe told me. In deep meditation, that is. Now this is exactly what you want to start doing. You want to start to truly become honest with yourself, and if there's stuff that you want to improve in your life that still hasn't improved, just ask yourself, am I truly imagining about the solution? Am I seeing it clearly in my mind? Because all the time your sensors, your sensory factors are going to show you this world of effects that more often than not is in complete contradiction to what we really would want to have. But because of the way we are trained, we're allowing those effects instead to dominate the consciousness, and so that beautiful first cause of imagination gets sort of buried underneath a pile of limitations that we observe. And this is the issue humanity has. Alright, that was kind of annoying. I kept talking for a couple of minutes, and then suddenly, as I was finishing the video, the camera said the SD card was full, but it didn't even warn me. So I was just talking to myself there. I'm used to doing that though, talking to myself, but because that's what we're doing right now. That's kind of annoying because I did give a few examples that I thought were really important, but you know, when you're in the flow of talking about something awesome like the mind in my case, it's hard to replicate it exactly, so I'm going to try my best here. What I was saying was I was giving an example of how this law of cause and effect can work in your life and how you should start looking at it. One of them being, as I said in that recording, that it might seem like a simple example that I'm giving you, but it's very important still. Writing a book, for example. I wanted to write one, and 10 years ago I had the idea that is working first cause. I had the idea of my consciousness. If the book was written, it would be an effect in the physical world for me and others to observe. How do I go from cause to effect? Well, you have to understand the creative process that you're involved in. So you hold the idea in your consciousness, and then you start to work on that idea in any way whatsoever you can. In the case of a book, it's a matter of writing, having an idea of what the book is about, and then simply to write it. And then eventually you'll end up with a book. That is an effect. Now in your case, that's how you want to start looking at your own goals in life from now on. You want to understand that everything you want is essentially an effect in your physical world. Now clearly understand, in order to get such effects like a better relationship, better health, more finances, better financial condition, better career, whatever it is, you're going to have to provide the cause. And as you focus on the first cause, which is your mind, you realize that you're working with a law that is always working for you and is meant to work for you and not against you. But it can feel like it's working against us if we're not using our minds in the right way. And sadly, most people have been trained again to use their minds against themselves by letting the outside world control the inner world of consciousness and imagination. But change them around, and then you're working from first cause to secondary cause, you could say. And secondary cause being the world of effects, where stuff also has to take place, where you take certain actions that are in a way also a cause, or providing a cause for the ultimate realization of that bigger dream that you hold within your consciousness. Now this is going to be a concept that I'm going to get back to later on throughout my YouTube channel anyway. If you have questions about them, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. But the intro, or the first part of this video with those pictures, is actually the most important part. If you grasp the process according to how it's described in the picture, well, then you grasp how to achieve whatsoever you want. And again, I want to apologize for this little error that happened, because I felt like the previous recording was a lot better. You know, sometimes it happens where you're working on your goals in life, even for me, and then something happens and it just kind of goes wrong. You're like, that's really annoying. And again, there you go. I still feel a little bad about the fact that the recording didn't go the way I wanted to, because I felt like I was in the flow of talking about this concept properly. However, the main point is still in this video entirely. The rest was just extra information to hopefully make it easier to understand the process, but over time we'll get back to this in any way. So again, the first thing to remember is when we talk about cause and effect, cause being your own consciousness, effects being the results that you see in your life. So if you want to change the results in your life, you're going to have to work with the cause. And if you work with first causation, which is the mind, you don't really have to worry about the sort of effects you'll get, because you'll be kind of reaching a point where you know what the effect is going to be. If you use your mind in a certain way, you know that a certain effect is going to take place according to how you're using your mind. And once that dawns upon you, you'll start to realize how to achieve your greatest dreams over a certain period of time. So this is something you really want to consider for the own dreams and goals you still have in life. Anyways, with that being said, never forget that we are the dreamers.